I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, every now and then a book comes along that really connects with you, that touches your soul. That's the case with the book that we're going to discuss right now. It is called Wurra Warren, Where the Wind Blows. It's a magnificent book that just might help you heal your soul. It is written by Sandy Ross, and we are delighted to have her as a guest right now on Spotlight. Sandy, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me, Logan. It's a real pleasure.
Pleasure is all
And
mine. For the folks at home, tell them what your book is about.
well, my book is came to me later in life, and finding out about my mother's heritage. I knew of it, but in Australia, of course, the Indigenous weren't seen even as I was growing up. But it wasn't until I got older and I travelled with my partner Peter Watts up north, and I worked with the East Kimberley community development programs,
Mhm.
and I got to know how our people were, and so. It was later in life. Well, 2018, the book was published, but I had a empathy. I just had to get my story out. And it is about history, and I call it her story because
Mhm.
of the patriarchal effect of history that has made wars. And it just didn't make sense to me. So after traveling with my people and talking and get to knowing them, I found their peace within, especially on the land, and I had to then start looking at polarities where people would say, "Oh, they're lazy." And I
Mhm.
thought, no, they're not lazy. And you have to go out and you have to live and you have to be part of a culture to know how they are. So I had to write this book, and through my just all through my own professional counselling and consultant and healing methods, I I was on a track. And so this book I've written because I think it's really important. It shows how the patriarch have ruled, and now I've had to actually make it so that I'm not a feminist standing out like in the 60s. We got blasted for that.
Mhm.
So I've actually had to use science to counteract. And now with all the technology knowledge, it's you got to take the positive, and so I did that. So I've actually done my own research on finding out about like pan-spiritism for short, which is in my next book. So I'm on my third book actually, because this journey, it hasn't stopped. This
Mm.
book, Wurra Warren, has actually got me involved in justice, in the justice system. I've got a court case coming up on the 28th of this month, actually standing up for Wurra Warren, which actually means knowing and believing. It's not like Western seeing and believing. We had to see everything. And that always, as a kid, I thought, oh, well, okay. And I used to question things. And so I've had this within me, and it's not until you get older that you realise, because you it's quite an isolating journey, really, because you don't really fit in.
Mm.
And but I've just actually been guided by my higher self, and so I actually go into explaining about the religious versus spirituality, which is a very, very important part, and also healing, and with what I'm doing now from this book, which came out in 2018, I'm just finding it's taken over. It's
Yeah.
taken over my life, actually. So, yes.
And the
Is there any
discoveries you
other?
made while living this life and traveling this journey and writing this book have been quite profound. You realize that there were all these aspects of femininity, or what might be called women's arts, that had been pushed to the side and oppressed, right?
Oh, definitely, yes. And I used to hate history at school because I always thought, oh, history just repeats itself. It's a bit boring. That was my thinking, and it wasn't until and so now I did write and I have written. History doesn't repeat itself. Man repeats history, and so now I'm at humanity can change history. So I go into really deep things, and they, because I meditate a lot and talk to my ancestors, and have got a real connection, a spiritual connection, and that's why it was hard to get noticed even within my own mob, which I haven't lived in a community. So it is very, very spiritual with my great granddad. My great granddad came through. He passed in 1926. My mother was born in 1927. And that's how spirit works. So Wuru Warren means women's business, but it means me, we, soul. And that's what's interested me because I found, I was christened a Catholic and I didn't get all my answers there. And so I used to think, well, okay. And again, just answering, just uh, uh, talking to myself and then answering and finding a connection with, well, I actually explain about creator God Biami, who was with the Wanjanas, the people up north or the spirits up north when I was traveling. So I connected up north of my spirit with down south of Australia. And it was very, very interesting. So when you deal with these spirits, that's why it's so important. There can be good and bad spirits. PP was our bad spirit. So they connect to negativity. That's what I write about. The negative human developments that is in a chapter with explaining the human development, Erickson's human development, the 8 stages. And then I did research with me, Minnie, on the research of human development for Aboriginals. And there's only 5 stages. So I found that really interesting. And it was like I went back in time and lived how our people lived. And that's why with the Royal Commission in South Australia in 1995, and that's when my mum passed.
Mhm.
So everything is a sign and everything's a death and a rebirth. So from that, I was working in Sydney at the time, but when I came back, I was really astounded with the Royal Commission from Hindmarsh Island, which there was a big debacle with the mission, Ralkan mission, and the Western Way. And because it's been about 230 years, over the generations, with our cultures actually gone, we've got bits of it, but assimilation has caused so much, a lot of trauma. Some people have accepted it. So when the traditional people lost that case, and it's actually written, and I've put that in my book, that the Seven Sisters dreaming story was not valid. It didn't exist. And I thought, how can they say that? That's a worldwide Indigenous dreaming. And I
Mhm.
thought, I've got to do something about this. And my ancestors, my great great grandmother, who within the story was a very wise woman, but she would have been called a nuppin, which means laying down sex. That it was really demeaning. And I connected with my great great grandmother, and I said, "No, I'm very proud of you." When the kings, the monarchs sent their cousins out with mental health issues, Mary and William Lyon, they took the bows out to make South Australia the province. This was what this was about. So this is what my court case is about. I'm
Mhm.
actually challenging the whole patriarchal system, how they've actually used the King William IV, who was had part Irish. He
Mhm.
mysteriously died 12 months later. Then the commissioners and the politicians that came in. And so I'm challenging how it was how it was supposed to be for South Australian Aboriginal people to have a freedom, and that changed in 1835. This is all in my book, so I've
Mhm.
actually had to go back and deal with um, uh, deception, manipulation, and so my journey has put me on a holistic path And so now I'm really involved in justice, the healing, her story versus history.
Mhm.
And I've dealt very, very in with it. It's actually made me plan. I was never a planner. I was never detailed, and now I know why. Because I'm actually, my energy, electromagnetic energy, is with my forebears, my heritage, and I always acted like that. And it's only till someone told me, "Well, Sandy, you're real Nunga. You feel, even though I'm white." And that's
Mm.
where I've been through discrimination also. So I know I'll have it from both sides, because I come as a two-way culture
Right.
a consultant, facilitator, yes. So there are issues. So I've actually been through them, and through my spiritual MeWe soul now, which I am actually putting it out, teaching and training. After my interview, I'll see how it goes. I have people standing by my side. I have to represent myself. I tried the lawyers, but the lawyers are under a PMA. I have my own PMA, which is my own private membership association. So I can challenge the South Australian Police. I can challenge the health system. I can challenge the lawyers. So I'm virtually on my own with promoting Wirra Warren philosophy.
Wonderful. You've been doing great work. I think this is a very brave journey you're taking. The book is sensational. I think a lot of people have felt repressed over the years, have felt held down over the years, and this book for them will certainly be a spiritual awakening. It is called Wirra Warren, Where the Wind Blows. It is written by Sandy Ross. You can find out more about Sandy and her work on her website, sandyrossbooks.com. Sandy, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Yeah, thank you, Logan, and have a good day. Bye.
My pleasure. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.